In Pennsylvania's Lebanon County, a meatpacking worker talks about how he believes he contracted COVID-19 at work.
Yo trabajo 8 horas diarias, tirando bolsas a la canasta a las mujeres. Un trabajo pesado, pero lo estamos haciendo.
His voice was digitally altered to protect his identity because he's afraid he'll be fired for speaking out.
Había una empleada ahí que me dijo, usted tiene una fiebre ahora mismo, tiene un dolor de cabeza.
¿Tú crees que tú te contagiaste a través de esa mujer que estaba al lado tuyo?
Seguro.
Ella estaba muy cerca de ti, ¿era?
Sí, teníamos casi cabeza con cabeza, trabajábamos como a un pie. Asustado. Sí, porque es una enfermedad que cualquiera lo lleva.
We went to the small city of Lebanon to find out why the coronavirus has overwhelmed the Latino community there. Lebanon is the most densely populated place in a county that's largely agricultural. And the majority of the county's coronavirus cases are popping up here in the city.
It's either stay at home and without money and without food for your family, or go and work and take the risk of getting infected with the virus.
One zip code accounts for nearly 40% of cases in the entire county.
We have more Latinos in the city than the whole county, and those Latinos are the ones who are working in those places that have been called essential places to work.
Cesar Liriano is a community organizer and small business owner. He has close ties to working-class residents, many of whom work in one of 2 nearby poultry processing facilities.
In Lebanon, the first time that I hear about that was a friend of mine who worked as a sanitation person on Farmer Price, Ben Herman. He called me and let me know that he was infected with the virus. People was worried because they don't know where to go, they don't know who to call, so they don't have any information to what they have to do if they think that they have the virus. They don't know what are their rights. This is about the people who is dying.
Obviously, the entire world has been taken by surprise, and we're very much unprepared for what the coronavirus has presented us. For essential workers, they need to be able to practice their work safely and still keep themselves protected. For meat processing, it's especially difficult because by its very nature, the work is very crowded. Workers are standing close together, elbow to elbow, and the work is moving very, very quickly too. So we're seeing these outbreaks in meat processing plants throughout the United States. And the average American wouldn't have any conception for how difficult the conditions are in meatpacking plants. They're really hard, being in extreme temperatures, from extreme heat to extreme cold, to how crowded it is, to how taxing it is on the body. It's one of the most dangerous jobs in America, in fact.
Melissa Perry is a leading public health researcher who spent over a decade studying meat processing plants.
Our focus was to really understand what are the conditions for meatpacking workers and what they need to do their work safely, and what are the risks. In order to keep people protected from infecting each other, folks have to stay physically distant, 6 feet or more apart, separate from each other. They also cannot come to work if they're feeling sick. And so in meat processing, if people are being incentivized to come in, even if they're not feeling well, then that obviously is a source of possible infection.
The CDC says more meat plant workers have been infected with COVID-19 in Pennsylvania than in any other state.
So it's really a major source of concern, especially in public health, in epidemiology. We know how to prevent the virus. We know how to prevent transmission. You can adhere to these infection control processes. You can ensure that workers are able to do their work safely and come home healthy and return to work the next day healthy, and at the same time adequately produce a steady supply of food. It is possible to do that.
I've been living here for the last 13 years. People say if you live in Lebanon and have never worked on Farmer Pride, then you don't live in Lebanon.
Farmers Pride is known commercially as Bell and Evans. The company is the largest private employer in Lebanon County. Its 2 processing plants and chicken hatchery sprawl across Fredericksburg, just a 15-minute drive from Lebanon. The family-owned brand sells premium, all-natural, and organic chicken.
2 lines hold about 38,000 chickens in total. Each line is 2 miles long. Our model is not about cheap chicken. It's about producing the best chicken that we possibly can and doing all the right stuff.
Before the virus, people saw the company as a company that brought stable work. People believed it was a good place to work.
Bell and Evans employees we spoke with say the company was slow to carry out the CDC's coronavirus guidelines back in March. And once protocols were implemented inside the plants, they say management was inconsistent in executing them.
They handled it really badly at the beginning. They didn't take precautions at the right time. People were saying, why isn't the company closing for 15 days to take measures to avoid a massive outbreak inside the plant? But they didn't close, they kept working, and the employees' infections came. And that's when people started leaving. Some went home, some quit. People over 60 years old still haven't returned to work. Lots of employees who tested positive, their wife or husband have to keep working because the clinic tells them if they don't have symptoms, no fever, headache, or any COVID symptoms, they should keep working. We know a lot of cases inside the plant of couples who tested positive and the husband or wife or brother live together in the same house, yet they're still working. Production always gets out. With or without employees, it needs to get out.
We are here today in a funeral procession to honor the people that have died from getting infected with coronavirus while working at Bell and Evans. This caravan is here today to denounce that essential workers are not protected while working at Bell and Evans. Bell and Evans says they've raised the bar for the entire poultry industry.
On April 14th, a Bell and Evans plant worker died from the coronavirus. The death rocked the tight-knit Latino community. Rafael Ferreiras has been vocal about the situation inside the plants.
The condition inside, they were all working together. They were acting like normal, like nothing was happening.
Lo de la compañía que me enoja profundamente, es que estaban atemorizados las personas que trabajaban allí, que tenían un miedo terrible. Los supervisores no permitían que se quejaran y el que se quejaba lo podían suspender. Nadie podía hablar de eso. Eso estaba prohibido, hablar de la pandemia y de que tenías algún síntoma.
Well, if that's true, it's obviously very troubling. Now, I have not had anybody contact my office or me personally and make an allegation of misconduct or lack of concern or whatever terms you want to use relative to the management of Bell and Evans.
State Senator David Arnold represents Lebanon County.
The information I've seen suggests that they traveled together from large cities or cities at least in the same vehicle, due to the financial need of not driving separately, which I certainly can understand. But obviously that also can be problematic if they're all driving in one vehicle together and one person has COVID. That can obviously lead to the potential, at least, of others obtaining COVID from that vehicle. The fact that they had to get there and couldn't afford to drive there individually, obviously played an important role in that then. So
if somebody in the car has the virus, they're still going into the work building, right? So they're still allowing people, in a sense, and not monitoring that.
You have a good point. The fact that the people are traveling together and going to work together, it doesn't necessarily matter where they obtain COVID, if it's in the car or if it's at the employer. It doesn't necessarily matter from the standpoint of we need to find a solution to that problem. We consider these to be essential positions, and we need to find a way to make sure that every single person in those essential jobs is treated properly and taken care of, and is able to be kept free from COVID. We simply can't have an entire group of people who work in one establishment becoming ill with COVID. It's completely wrong. It's inappropriate.
What we now have are guidance or recommendations for the Centers for Disease Control. And it's important to know that they have no enforcement capacity. They have no enforcement authority to come into any workplace and say, you must do this.
The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, can impose rules on employers to reduce or eliminate workplace hazards that could cause major injuries. But there's no regulation that covers airborne contagions like the coronavirus.
There are other rules, other protections, bloodborne pathogens, for example, but we do not have the airborne pathogen standard. There was an effort by OSHA to establish that and to get that rule passed. And after 2016, a lot of that work just stopped.
Tenemos que hacer algo. Esta gente está desesperada. Estos trabajadores están trabajando como si fueran esclavos, como que no tienen derechos. Si estamos en el 2020, no es posible que una empresa se maneje de esa manera, de esa irresponsabilidad de los dueños de esa empresa. También se infectó la esposa de mi padre. Cuando él se quedó en casa, pensamos que era por su seguridad. Pero había un enemigo silente que andaba ahí. Luego que lo llevan al hospital, la batalla fue dura, pero la perdió. Papá, a sus 88 años, como te dije, era un hombre lleno de planes. Y yo le decía, papá, pero que la vida ya no queda tanto tiempo. Y me decía, y ustedes no son Dios, ustedes no saben cuándo yo me voy de aquí.
A esa gente, ¿qué es lo que es? ¿A cuál es? A la gente de Instagram, Facebook, de las redes sociales.
Pues sí, que se porten bien.
Era muy alegre y le gustaba mucho cantar. Y de hecho cantaba muy bien.
Ya viene amaneciendo, ya la luz del día nos dio. Levántate de mañana, mira que ya amaneció. Quisiera ser solecito para entrar por tu ventana y darte los buenos días acostadita en tu cama. Quisiera ser un San Juan, quisiera ser un San Pedro, a venirte a saludar con la música del cielo. Ya viene amaneciendo, ya la luz del día nos dio.